He spent his last dollar to buy an Apache girl, but she taught him what freedom truly meant. Dust Creek, Arizona Territory, 1872. The air reeked of sweat, whiskey, and something meaner. Dust Creek was not a town built for decency. It was carved out by men who took what they wanted and paid only when someone bled. The sun had long dipped behind the buttes, casting long shadows through the cracked windows of the Dead Lantern Saloon, where the laughter of drunken men collided with the rattle of poker chips and piano keys banged out of tune. Caleb Thorne stepped inside like a ghost walking into a fire. His boots were dust-caked, his coat threadbare, his face shadowed beneath a battered hat. A scar crossed his jaw, an old blade wound from the war still sore in the cold. He moved without hurry, as if he had nowhere else to be, which was true. He had spent the last coin in his pocket on stale jerky 3 days ago. Now there was only $1 left, folded once, hidden behind the lining of his boot. He had kept it like a keepsake, not currency. The saloon was alive with noise until it wasn't. A voice called out from the back room, and the crowd parted. The local slaver, Harlan Pike, a tall man with red suspenders and wolf eyes, dragged a girl forward by a length of rope. She was Apache, young, maybe 20. Dirt streaked her cheeks, and her long black hair hung in tangled ropes down her back. Her hands were bound, but her chin was lifted. She did not scream or cry or beg. Her eyes were fierce, like two coals that refused to die out. Pike slammed a boot on the poker table and barked, "One night, boys, one night with the savage. Highest bid takes her." The men cheered like dogs thrown raw meat. Someone shouted $5, another raised to $6. "Come on," Pike grinned. "She's got fire in her. Tame her if you can." The Apache girl did not move. Her stare swept the room, defiant, unflinching, disgusted. Caleb did not know why he stepped forward. He only knew the way her eyes met his, without fear, without plea, but with something else. Challenge. He pushed past a drunk leaning on the bar, reached the table. All eyes turned. Pike squinted. "You got a bid, Ghost?" Caleb reached into his coat slowly, like a man pulling out a gun. Instead, he laid a single silver dollar on the table. His last. It rang like thunder when it hit the wood. "Whom dollar?" Someone snorted. "Hell, she ain't worth the boots on her feet." "No boots," Pike smirked. "No feet worth selling." The men roared with laughter, but Caleb said nothing. He just looked at the girl. Looked at her like she was not a thing but a person, and in the silence that followed, the room changed. Pike leaned in. "You serious, Thorne? That your last coin?" Caleb nodded once. "We?" Pike asked. Caleb's voice was quiet, "Because no one else here deserves to look at her again." The laughter stopped. Pike scratched his chin, eyes narrow. "Hell, $1, one night. Fine. Take her." He tossed the rope at Caleb's feet like a leash, but Caleb did not pick it up. He looked at the girl, then at the rope. Then, in front of everyone, he pulled out his knife and cut the bonds at her wrists. The girl staggered but did not fall. Her hands were bruised, bloodied, but free. Caleb handed her the knife. No words, just steel and silence. The room watched, confused, almost disappointed. Mekari, the Apache girl looked at the blade, then at the man who had bought her, only to give her back her hands. She raised her head, walked to him, slow. Their eyes met. She did not say, "Thank you." He did not ask for it. But something passed between them, something wordless, something more than freedom. A seed. She spoke then, in English, clear and proud. "I belong to no man." Caleb nodded. "Then do not walk behind me. Walk beside." And they did. Out of the saloon, into the dark, into the unknown. A drunk near the doorway muttered, "That man's a fool." Another whispered, "Maybe. Or maybe he's the last good one." The door slammed behind them, and just like that, Dust Creek had one less ghost and 2 more legends. The desert did not forgive easily. Long after the saloon lights had disappeared behind them, Caleb and the Apache girl walked in silence beneath a bone-white moon. The stars stretched forever, cold and watching. Coyotes howled in the distance. Every sound seemed sharper out here. Every footstep, every rustle of sagebrush, every heartbeat. They camped near a dry riverbed under the crooked limbs of a mesquite tree. Caleb built a small fire with dry kindling and did not speak. He gave her space. No rope, no orders, no questions. He simply handed her half a canteen and a crust of bread, then leaned back against his saddle and closed his eyes. She watched him, always watching. Her name was Naeli, daughter of Chief Tencrow. Her people once rode strong across these lands, but the cavalry had come at dawn with rifles and fire. Her father had died with a blade in his hand and a curse on his lips. She had been taken, bound, sold, stripped not just of freedom but of dignity, until this strange white man bought her and then gave her a knife. She did not trust him. Men like him always wanted something. Naeli waited until the fire burned low. The moon had passed overhead. The man, Caleb, was still. She rose slowly, silent as dusk. Her fingers crept across the ground, found the blade he had given her. She wrapped her hand around it. Her breath held. Her feet moved closer. He lay there, hat over his face, one hand on his chest, unmoving, vulnerable, one thrust, quick, clean. She could be gone. She raised the blade, but his voice broke the night. Calm, clear, not afraid. If you are going to do it, Caleb said, aim for the neck. That is quicker. She froze. He lifted the hat from his face, eyes meeting hers. No anger, no fear, just tired truth. I am not your enemy, he said. You bought me, she hissed. I bought you to stop them from touching you, he replied. That was all I could do. You cut my bonds, but you still stay. I stay because the East is crawling with bounty men who would kill you for $10, or worse. She held the knife tighter. You think I need your protection? No, he said. I think you need a choice. That is different. End of chapter 8. An end of the chicken. Naeli stepped back. The blade trembled in her hand. I do not understand you. I do not understand myself, he said, sitting up slowly. But I know what it means to be hunted, and I know what it means to be free, but alone. Silence stretched between them like a stretched bowstring. I will not stop you, he said. Walk wherever you wish. But if you go east, they will find you, and they will not give you knives. Her breath came hard, uneven. She stared at him. A man who had nothing, no horse, no gold, no home. And yet he offered her everything she had once prayed for in the dark, freedom without claim. She dropped the knife. It hit the ground softly. Beautiful. I do not walk behind men, she said. Caleb nodded. Then walk where I can see you. That is enough. She sat down, not close, but not far. The fire crackled. The stars moved. In her heart the storm still raged. But somewhere deep inside, where memory met the soul, something had shifted. The man had not tied her. He had not taken her. And yet she had not run. The sun was cruel by day, but it was the night that brought danger. Caleb and Naeli traveled west, following the shadows of the hills like whispers against the land. He said little, only pointed out paths that avoided towns, trails that stayed hidden. She asked no questions, but she watched him with growing curiosity. This man who never touched her, never claimed her, yet never left her behind. Their destination was the Sierra Madre foothills, where the mountains rose like stone guardians against the sky. Caleb had once heard of an old mining town, long abandoned, now rumored to be a safe haven for those wanting to disappear. But before they reached the range, they passed through Wolf's Gully, a narrow cut between two bluffs, with walls too steep to climb and nowhere to turn. Caleb hesitated at the entrance. His hand brushed the butt of his revolver. Keep close, he said. Naeli nodded, silent. Halfway through the gully, the wind shifted. The air thickened. Then came the voice. Oh, well, look what the desert blew in. 3 men stepped from behind the rocks, dust-covered, rifles ready, grins too wide. One wore a Union coat, though it was torn and faded. Another had a necklace made of dried ears. Bounty hunters. Caleb stepped forward, placing himself between them and Nayeli. You look lost, the tallest one said, eyeing Nayeli. That girl Apache? We got orders to bring any of 'em in, $10 a scalp. 20 if she's still breathing. She's not for sale, Caleb said. The men laughed. And up to you, friend. Without warning, Caleb moved, fast, like he was 20 again, not battered by war and wandering. He fired twice, dropping the man with the necklace. Run, he shouted. Nayeli didn't move. Go. She ran. The gully twisted, and she ducked behind boulders as gunfire echoed off the walls. Caleb kept the others busy, drawing them deeper into the pass. He knew he would not outrun them, but maybe she would. He fired until the chamber clicked empty. Then he ran until his legs gave out. He fell behind a rock, bleeding from the side. The world spun. From his coat, he pulled a small bundle wrapped in oilskin. Inside was a knife and a hand-drawn map, routes only he knew. He placed them gently where the trail split. A sign. A gift. Then he leaned back, eyes to the sky. At least she gets to keep walking, he murmured. But footsteps returned, not heavy boots. Bare feet, quiet, determined. Nay. She appeared from behind a rock, holding the rifle of the man Caleb had shot. Her hands trembled, but not from fear, from fury. She aimed, fired. One bounty hunter fell. The last turned and ran. She dropped the rifle, rushed to Caleb. Blood soaked his shirt, but his eyes were still open. You came back, he said. I do not leave people who protect me, she whispered. He smiled, weak. You were supposed to keep going. I chose not to. She tore a strip of cloth from her dress, pressed it to his wound. He winced, but said nothing. They sat together, surrounded by the stillness of death and desert, and in that silence something shifted. She had run, he had stayed. But now, they stayed together. The fire crackled gently, throwing long shadows across the canyon wall. Night had settled in like a blanket drawn over the desert. The stars above were sharp, bright, and infinite, silent witnesses to things the world never spoke of. Caleb sat on one side of the flame, his back resting against a smooth boulder, his arm bandaged, his face drawn but calm. Across from him, Nayeli sat cross-legged, her eyes reflecting the firelight, her long black hair catching the flicker-like strands of raven feathers. Neither of them had spoken in over an hour. Then Caleb shifted, pulled a small piece of dried meat from his pack, handed it to her without a word. She took it, nodding once, and chewed slowly, her gaze fixed on the fire. After a while, Caleb spoke. His voice was low but steady. There was a boy, he said, back in the war. Nayeli glanced at him. He did not look back. He was maybe 10, barefoot, hungry, came out of the woods after a battle in Georgia. His name was Isaiah. He paused, drawing in the dry night air. He was black, freed slave, or maybe just escaped. I gave him water, food, hid him under my coat when the company passed through. Thought it was the right thing. His jaw tensed, but they found him. My captain said I was harboring a runaway. They beat the boy, told me to stand there and watch. I couldn't. I jumped in, fought back. Caleb looked into the fire like he could still see the moment. They broke 3 of my ribs, took my stripes, left me in a ditch. The boy, he ran. I never saw him again. Silence. I think about him, still. Wonder if he made it. If someone else helped him, or if the world swallowed him whole like it does so many. Nayeli did not speak for a long time. Then she said quietly, The world swallows many. She leaned forward, feeding a twig into the flame. My father was called 10 Crow. He was a chief, not because of blood, but because he carried the weight when others could not. He taught me how to track elk, how to read the wind, how to speak with the dead." Her voice caught, but she did not cry. "He died in a raid. Cavalry came before sunrise, burned our tents, shot our horses. My mother died holding my sister. I watched from the rocks. My father took 3 soldiers with him before they cut him down." Her hands clenched in her lap. "I swore I would not forget. Swore I would never let their ways erase ours. Our songs. Our names. Our fire." Caleb looked across the flames at her. "You carry it well." She met his gaze. "And you? You carry ghosts." He nodded. "More than I should." Another silence settled, but this time it was not empty. It was full of memory, of loss, of the strange comfort found in broken things recognizing each other. "You and I," Naeli said softly, "we are not the same." "No," Caleb agreed, "but we are both still standing." She gave a small smile, one corner of her mouth curling like a half-forgotten prayer. "Sometimes that is all a warrior can do." The fire crackled again, sending sparks into the sky. They sat like that until the embers died. 2 survivors with different blood, different gods, different grief, but the same quiet ache. And somehow, in that canyon between their wounds, the first threads of trust began to weave. The air grew thicker as they moved into the mountains, heavier with pine and memory. The desert gave way to slopes dotted with juniper and cedar, the wind colder now, more ancient. Birds circled overhead. Somewhere in the distance, a drumbeat echoed faintly against the rock. Naeli knew this land. It was not her village, that place had burned. But these ridges had once been hunting ground for her people, and in a quiet fold of the earth, near a creek that still ran clean, there remained a camp. Smoke rose in slender lines, figures moved between hides stretched over wooden frames. Dogs barked, children laughed. But when the sentries spotted Caleb, the laughter died. They came out with bows drawn. Naeli stepped forward, hands raised. She spoke in her tongue, swift, urgent. The archers hesitated, then one turned and ran back into camp. Minutes passed. Then a man stepped out. He was broad-shouldered, with silver hair in 2 long braids, and a necklace of turquoise and bone. His eyes were sharp, tired and unyielding. Taki, war chief of the Hidden Ashes Band. He did not speak to Caleb. He looked only at Naeli. "You were thought dead," he said in Apache. "I escaped," she replied. "And this man?" He motioned at Caleb without turning his head. "He saved me." Taki's jaw tightened. "No white man saves without taking first. He took nothing. He took you from your people. That is already too much." She shook her head. "He gave me my knife, my choice." Taki's eyes narrowed. Then, at last, he turned to Caleb and spoke in broken English. "You speak soft, stranger, but your skin carries the color of war. I have buried sons who bled by white hands like yours." Caleb did not flinch. "I have buried people too." Taki stepped closer. "You want to stay? Among us?" "No," Caleb said simply. "I want her to be safe." The war chief stared at him, as if measuring the weight of his soul. Then he turned to Naeli. "You say he is different, but if he is not, the blood he spills will mix with ours." She nodded. "Then prove he is different. Prove your loyalty." Naeli's breath caught. "How?" "By doing what your father would have done to an enemy brought to our fire," Tachi said. "Kill him." The words landed like stone. Naeli stood still, her eyes wide, her hand instinctively moving toward the blade on her hip. Taki unsheathed his own knife, walked to Caleb, handed it hilt first to Naeli. "Do it, or lead with him, and never return." The circle tightened. The camp fell silent. Women peered from tents, children stopped playing. Only the wind moved now. Naeli took the blade in her hand. Heavy, familiar, terrible. She turned to Caleb. He looked at her without fear. "If this is the end," he said softly, "then it is yours to give." She stared at him, at the man who had not caged her, who had not asked for her heart, but earned something deeper, her faith. Her hand trembled. She stepped closer, then dropped the blade at his feet. "No," she said, "I will not kill a man who carried me through fire when no one else would." She turned to Tachi. "If that means I am no longer Apache, then I will carry my name alone." A long silence. Then, from the back of the crowd, an elder woman spoke in their tongue. "The girl has spirit, like her father, and the man bled for her." Another voice echoed, then another. Murmurs spread. Tacky bent down, picked up the blade, looked at Caleb. "You bleed for her once, you bleed for us all if you fail." Then he turned and walked away, and just like that they were not outsiders anymore. But they were not home either. Not yet. The blade lay between them, sharp, still, waiting. Nayeli stood with her breath tight in her chest, the desert wind lifting the edge of her cloak as if it too held its breath. All around them, the members of the Hidden Ashes band watched in a ring of silence, some expectant, others wary, all measuring the weight of her next move. Caleb didn't move. He stood with his arms at his sides, palms open, the way a man does before a firing squad. There was no anger in his eyes, no regret, just a deep, almost sacred calm. He looked only at her. "If my death gives you peace," he said, voice low but steady, "if it helps you return to your people with honor, then I welcome it." Nayeli's fingers curled around the handle of the knife. The war chief's eyes burned into her from behind, demanding resolve. This was the test of loyalty, the judgment. But Caleb did not flinch. He stepped forward, not to threaten, not to flee, but simply to be close. "You do not owe me anything," he said. "I never wanted to own you, only to keep the fire in your eyes from being put out." Her throat tightened. "You are not like them," she whispered. "I never wanted to be." She looked at the blade again. It gleamed in the morning light, catching the edge of truth. Then, slowly, deliberately, she knelt and placed it on the ground. Gasps rose from the crowd. Nayeli stood and turned, voice rising so all could hear. This man did not come to take. He came to return what was stolen. Her eyes scanned the faces of her people. "He could have left me in the gully, could have left me in chains, but he gave me back my hands, my voice." Someone muttered, "He's still white." Nayeli lifted her chin. "Then let his actions speak, not his skin." For a moment there was only wind. Then a voice cracked the silence, old, weathered, and familiar. It came from Grandmother Sochi, wrapped in deerskin and turquoise, leaning on a twisted cane. She stepped into the circle, her eyes like smoke and fire combined. "I remember a white doctor," she said, "long ago. When soldiers came for our camp, he hid 2 of my granddaughters under his floor. He risked his life and his children's. He asked for no reward." She pointed to Caleb. "Not all pale hands carry death." Murmurs spread again, this time softer, more questioning. A few elders nodded. A young warrior lowered his spear. Chief Tachi said nothing for a long time. Then he stepped forward, took the knife from the ground, and held it in both hands. He looked at Caleb. "You could have fought, could have run." "I have done enough running," Caleb answered. Haki turned the blade once, inspecting its edge. "You bled for her. That blood counts for something." He handed the knife back to Nayeli. "Your choice saved him. Your truth saved us all from another blind hatred." Then to the tribe, "Let no one speak against this woman's choice again." Caleb met Nayeli's eyes. There was no victory in them, only relief, and something deeper. Respect, maybe even reverence. That night, the fire burned brighter than it had in years, not because of war or ritual, but because 2 people had refused to become what the world expected of them. And somewhere in the embers, something like belonging began to glow. The wind shifted before the horses came, dry, bitter, laced with dust and gun oil. Caleb smelled it first. He stood from where he had been sharpening an axe blade near the fire pit, his eyes narrowed toward the ridge. The dogs in the camp began to bark. Chickens scattered. Mothers pulled children into their arms. Then the thunder came. Hooves pounding from the south, echoing through the valley like a war drum. Taki stormed out of his lodge. Naili was already at his side, bow in hand, knives strapped to her belt. "They come for me," she said. "No," Caleb said grimly, stepping forward. "They come for all of us, now." Over the ridge rode Harlan Pike, the slaver from Dust Creek. But he was not alone. Behind him were 6 riders, armed men in worn cavalry coats and outlaw leathers, faces wrapped in bandanas, eyes dead with purpose. Pike halted just beyond the camp's entrance. He called out with a grin, "Evening, savages. I've come to collect what belongs to me." Tachi stepped forward. "You have no claim here." Pike laughed. "The girl is property, bought and sold. She ran. I'm here to take her back." Caleb moved to stand beside Naeli. "You'll have to go through me." Pike's eyes narrowed. "You again. Shoulda let you hang." He raised a hand. His men drew their rifles. The camp erupted. Arrows soared first, silent, deadly. 2 mercenaries fell from their saddles before they could fire, but the others opened up with pistols and repeaters. Bullets ripped through tents, shattered pottery, tore through the air. Screams rang out. Tachi barked orders in Apache. Warriors rose from trenches, sprang from brush with spears and knives. The Hidden Ashes band had survived too long to fall easy. Caleb grabbed a fallen rifle and dove behind a wagon, firing at the attackers. He covered 2 young boys running to shelter. Beside him, Naeli moved like a shadow, loosing arrows with deadly precision. Then, through the smoke and chaos, Caleb saw her. A little Apache girl, no more than 6, frozen in the open, clutching a doll made of cloth and feathers. A mercenary raised his pistol, aiming straight for her. Caleb ran. He did not think, did not aim. He threw his body in front of the child, knocking her to the ground just as the gun fired. The bullet struck him in the back. He grunted, staggered, then collapsed over the girl, shielding her. Naeli screamed. She sprinted to them, knife in hand, and drove it into the attacker's chest. He fell, choking on his last breath. More warriors surged forward. The tide turned. Pike tried to flee, but an arrow struck his leg. He fell from his horse, howling. Tachiki strode to him, ripped the slaver's gun from his hand and struck him once, hard, with the full weight of generations behind it. Then it was over. Smoke drifted. The wounded groaned. The wind blew through broken tents. But the camp still stood. Naeli dropped beside Caleb, blood soaking through his shirt, his breath shallow. "You fool," she whispered, tears in her eyes. "Why did you run into fire?" He smiled weakly. "Because she reminded me of Isaiah." "Stay with me," she begged. "I will try." The little girl crawled from beneath him, wide-eyed, then wrapped her arms around his neck and held on tight. Around them, the tribe gathered. They had seen everything. Not just a man fighting for survival, but a man who bled for a child not his own. A man who once walked among enemies, but now stood, wounded, unwavering, among family. That night, the drums did not beat for victory. They beat for honor. The pain came first, sharp, then dull, then floating. Caleb drifted through fever, hearing voices he could not reach, dreaming of fire and wind and a little girl's eyes. Time moved strangely. He tasted water, felt cloth pressed to his skin, heard whispers in a language not his own, but kind, careful, familiar. When he finally opened his eyes, the world was golden with late afternoon light. A woven ceiling of deer hide and wood beams met his gaze. Somewhere nearby, someone sang softly, an old Apache lullaby, low and steady. He turned his head slowly. Naeli sat beside him. Her hair was braided, her hands stained with healing herbs. Her bow leaned against the wall, but the blade never left her hip. He tried to speak. She placed 2 fingers to his lips. "You were gone for 3 days," she said, her voice quieter than he remembered. "We didn't think you would wake." He managed a hoarse whisper. "How many did we lose?" 3 wounded, none dead. You saved the girl. Her name is Naylan. She refuses to leave your side." He let out a breath, half laugh, half groan. "Stubborn like her tribe." "Stubborn like the man who shielded her with his spine," Nayeli said, eyes shining. Outside the lodge, children ran. Women cooked over fires. Men fletched arrows, carved tools. The camp lived, not in fear, but in strength. Days passed. Caleb's wounds healed slowly, but he walked again. First with help, then alone. Wherever he went, people nodded. Some offered water. Others offered silence, which in this place meant respect. One morning, Nayeli led him to a ridge overlooking a wide valley. The wind was clean. Below, travelers moved along a dusty trail, some Apache, some white, some mestizo. Horses rested at a newly built corral. Wooden signs marked the site in 2 languages. A simple structure stood at the center. A stable, a water trough, a shaded table. "What is this?" Caleb asked. "Our idea," Nayeli said. "A resting post. Not a town, not a camp. Just a place to stop, to talk, to trade, to breathe. Who will run it?" "We will," she said. He turned to her. She took his hand. "You never asked me to stay," she said. "I never wanted to trap you." She smiled, a soft thing that broke him open again. "You did not buy me, Caleb Thorne," she said. "You gave me back my choice, and I choose you." He looked at her then, truly saw her, not as the girl from the cage, not the warrior in the canyon, but the woman who had made him whole again. He touched her cheek. "Then I will stay, if you'll have me." She nodded once, forever. They'd built a life there, brick by slow brick. Travelers came and went, some stayed. A merchant taught reading. A blacksmith arrived with a Navajo wife and a wagon full of tools. An old priest set up a tent and never once tried to convert anyone. Children from both worlds played in the dust. Laughter replaced gunfire. Names were exchanged.